Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit. I'm here to ask and answer one simple question. WTF is South Park, the stick of truth. It's a game that some people doubted would even see the light of day. After the bankruptcy of THQ, the license was eventually bought, including of course the project, by Ubisoft. And then it was delayed over and over and over and over again. There were so many statements saying, oh yeah, it's totally coming out in 2013, and then it just never happened, and it kept getting pushed back, and finally it's now available. It's here. It exists. It's a real thing. It's brought to you by Obsidian Entertainment. Those are the folks behind such titles as Neverwinter Nights 2, as well as Fallout New Vegas. But they've had a few misses as well, of course. Some people didn't like Knights of the Old Republic 2. Don't really blame them, it was a buggy mess, and it was missing the ending, so that wasn't too great, but the actual game itself, particularly the storyline and the various improved mechanics, I felt were particularly good. They also made a game called Alpha Protocol, which could have been great if, again, it wasn't a horrible buggy mess with terrible combat mechanics. Unfortunately, it was all of those things. So, they've had a bit of a rough ride. A bunch of the ex-Black Isle guys, of course, are working for Obsidian, headed up by folks like Chris Avalon. So, it's not like they don't know what they're doing, but they have a tendency to get really unlucky. If you were to look at New Vegas, for instance, they ended up missing out on their Metacritic-bound bonus by 1%. 1%! If you can believe that. There were also reports of rushed development and all sorts of things like that. So, have they been given enough time not to mess up the stick of truth? That is the question. We will find out. Alright, first to the options menu. Yeah. Not brilliant, is it? No. No, not at all. Now, I should give you context here, before you go insane looking at this. Here's the thing. The game is in the cutout animation style of the actual show. That means it's 2D. So there are no graphics options of any description. Which I guess sort of makes sense. However, it is still lacking some fairly useful features. Not to mention the fact that it doesn't look particularly good, does it? It really doesn't. It's really strange that the menu would have this fantastic aesthetic. It's like, oh yeah, it's going to be a South Park aesthetic, and everything is going to be sticking to the South Park art style. Then you got this, which looks like a default option screen from some random indie game. It's a little bit weird. So, you do have 3 difficulty levels, casual, normal, and hardcore. Then you've got your separate audio sliders. You can set the refresh rate of your monitor, but it doesn't make any bloody difference, because the game's locked to 30 FPS. Now, usually that would be enough reason for me to dismiss the game entirely. However, we are talking about a role-playing game, a turn-based role-playing game, and more to the point, I have a feeling the 30 FPS was required in order to make the animation style work. So this would be one of those very, very rare circumstances where I would say, actually, it's okay that it's in 30 FPS. I'd probably still prefer it in 60. It would be slightly more responsive, but it seems like it was a technical limitation imposed upon them as a result of the animation style. And the game plays just fine. I mean, as I said, it is very much a turn-based RPG. Aside from that, though, you are lacking key features like key rebinding, and honestly, even though the game is primarily mouse-driven, there are a number of keystrokes required, and the way that they've set them up is clunky at best. There doesn't even appear to be an option here to switch over to controller. I assume it's probably automatic, but if you have one plugged in, then expect nonsense. DLC menu is there. They did announce some DLC. I believe the first one was actually supposed to be 360 exclusive. Hopefully they've changed that. That's a bit of a douche move, as Cartman would say. Alright, let's get into the game. Let's have a look at it, see what's going on with it. According to Steam, I played this for about 6 hours. I don't know if that's 100% true. I think I was alt-tabbed for maybe 45 minutes of that, but I've been in the game for a fairly significant amount of time, and this is a first impression series, if you haven't already realized, if you're new to the channel, so if you're expecting a review, you're not going to get one. This is my first impressions of the title after about 5 hours of play. So, this is my character, and you can actually design your own South Park character, which is surprisingly satisfying. Not only that, but there's a lot of different options, and you can also kit out your character with a wide variety of different ridiculous styles, as you will probably notice. There we go. So you can have beards, even though you're about 10, so I'm not really sure what's going on with that. You can choose different colored hair. Most of the time that's shown underneath the helmet, but in this case not. So if we just unequip that for a second, then we can show you a few different options. There you go. Some of them are quite ridiculous, as you can probably notice. But everything looks very South Park-esque, and you're going to see that throughout the entire thing, with the exception of some of these menus that it almost looks like they deliberately went for this really cheap-looking game aesthetic when it came to the menus. But I'm not entirely convinced it works with the rest of it. Oh yeah, you can mess around there, and you also, of course, have equipment, and we'll talk about how the equipment works in a minute. But I'm just gonna pop my helmet back on. There we go. That should do the trick. So you move around with the W, A, S, and D keys, and the character moves around the way you'd expect a South Park character to. It just kind of bounces around the place in a fairly sort of messy and disheveled fashion, which is fine. You know, that's what you're looking for. You have a sprint key as well, which is kind of required because traveling around the town itself, particularly when you haven't unlocked all of the fast travel points, can take a little bit of time, so sprinting is good. You also have access to your computer, but you can access that anywhere. There's actual Facebook in the game, and there is a purpose to that. I don't really want to... I want to try and avoid spoilers as much as possible, but they kind of lit it all over the place, and the game is quite story-driven, so you're going to have to forgive me if a few minor spoilers slip through. Regardless, there is a Facebook system whereby you can gain friends, and they will give you messages, which will either give you clues and sort of side quests, or will just be there for flavor. Now, the amount of friends you have is relevant because they will unlock various perks. The more friends you get, the more perks you can unlock here. And I believe these are permanent. I don't think there's a way to reset them, so there are 20 in total that you can just unlock, and it really depends on your playstyle as to which one you're going to want. Here, gain 2 power points when using a healing item, and my maximum power points is increased by 20%. You also have magic, which consists of farting. Welcome to South Park. I suppose that's kind of to be expected, isn't it? Okay, let's go and explore, and then we'll kind of dive into the mechanics a little bit deeper. So this is your house, and you can loot it for stuff, and you probably should. In fact, you can loot pretty much everything for stuff in this game, which is pleasingly old school when it comes to RPGs. You can wander into pretty much anybody's house. Some of them need keys, but most of the time you can just wander into somebody's house and you can steal all their stuff, and nobody cares at all. Indeed, you can loot the bodies of your friends, for God's sake. Also, you're mute, and the game likes to point that out.
Hey, sweetie, go check it out on the news.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that because that might actually be a spoiler, so let's go outside and mess around and just explore.
Oh, my God! They came out of nowhere! There was a huge earthquake, and then there was burning in my yard! Didn't you hear about it? It's all over the news. Here, look!
And that a large earthquake and several fires in the South Park area last night woke many residents from their sleep. Here with the report is a midget in a bikini. Tom, government workers here are assuring everyone nothing out of the ordinary has happened. They claim that the only reason huge tents have gone up to cover this area is to mask the construction of a new Taco Bell, which will open sometime later this month. Thanks, midget, I do love me some Taco Bell. The mayor of South Park states that last night's tremors and fires are under control and that hopefully schools and businesses can open again soon.
It's horrible. You don't understand. The elves, they took the stick! And it's bullshit because that is totally cheating. We specifically said no trying to take the stick at night. Elves are dirty little liars, and we have to lay waste to their entire base! You have some incredible ability to make friends quickly, Sir Douchebag. I'm sending you on a quest to go out into the lands of Zaron and recruit a whole nother faction to Koopa Keep. Find the goth kids and give them this letter. Get them to join our kingdom and we shall lay waste to the Drow Elves once and for all! Fucking cheaters.
You know, I think you'd be hard-pressed to tell the difference between this game and your average South Park episode. Just how accurately they've managed to represent the South Park aesthetic in this game blows my mind. Particularly in the cutscenes and things like that. Obviously, all the original voice actors are there. There's like 2 of them, but you get the idea. So yeah, that's crazy in and of itself. That's probably reason enough, I think, for South Park fans to buy the game, but you know, I'm actually not much of a South Park fan. Occasionally I like it, particularly when they do episodes on video games or whatever, because I think their comments are particularly pointed and quite funny. Some of the political episodes are kind of interesting, but South Park's this weird mix of some kind of clever, snarky black humor, and then a bunch of gross-out toilet humor stuff, which I couldn't, you know, give a damn about. I'd really, really dislike it. And this game is laden with that. I mean, for God's sake, your magical powers are farting. It's as simple as that. Not to mention the anal probing sequences, which you may have heard about, considering, I believe in the EU, on the console versions, those sequences, and in Australia, of course, have been censored. So, yeah, there's that. The PC version in North America hasn't, so if you want to see anal probing, then this game has you covered. It's a little disgusting. In fact, a lot of stuff in this game is, I mean, for God's sake. One demonstration is the fact that I have an alien probe stuck in my arse. Well, there you go. That is a game mechanic. Well, it's South Park, I suppose it's to be expected, isn't it? So, you have the whole town to explore, really, and it's all on a 2D plane, which is a little weird. So, here where I am, I can access all of these houses, but if I want to get to another plane, I've got to find one of the side roads that intersects with the higher or lower levels. So I head over here, I can go up there, and then I can reach these areas in order to do main quests or side quests. One of the more annoying parts of this, particularly early on when you don't really know your way around the town, is the fact that there are no objective markers. So if I need to be in a particular area, you would think, oh, right, it's gonna, if I pass the house, there's gonna be an arrow that says, this is the house. This is especially true considering all the houses basically look exactly the same. But no, they don't do that. So it's quite easy, especially early on, to miss the objective you're looking for. Thankfully, there are 12 fast travel points around the town that you can use, and that's reasonably useful. And does speed up the experience significantly. The first couple of hours can be a real drag. And I mean that not in the sort of 90s cool kids kind of way, but I mean it in the sense that it just drags on. It takes a while to get where you want to go. Simple as that. And you might also spend an awful lot of time messing around, because there is just a ridiculous amount of loot to be found. Whether it be... Why the hell can't I get up here? There we go. This didn't work for some reason. Whether it be these chests, which will contain a wide variety of things, including items, stickers for your items, so-called weapon strap-ons, which are just weapon mods, basically, which will give you different abilities. Or just collectibles, like the 30 Chin Pokemon that are hidden around the place, and all sorts of stuff like that. A lot of South Park references. Surprising nobody in the world ever. Alright, so what do we want to do? We should probably just do some side quests, because I don't really want to spoil the main quest for you. I'd also like to show you some of the combat, since that's one of the primary components of the game. It's what you're going to be doing an awful lot of. Let's use a fast travel system, I think. Let's just check there's nothing over here that I'm missing now. I cleared out the hobo in this area. I think we could actually just go into the forest and grind there. I assume there's probably some part of the story where you actually need to do the whole forest thing, but up until this point, until you unlock the farting ability, you're not able to get past these rats. But once you go into the forest, you usually end up fighting wild animals for no apparent reason. So there you go. We might as well do that, because that's going to let us demonstrate the combat quite easily. And this has taken me somewhere. Oh, take me back here. Alright then. Well, there you go. There seems to be one way to access different areas, but it's very confusing because the map, I don't believe, actually covers the forest in any way. So I assume there's a way to figure it out. I don't know if any of this is randomized, but it's almost like a little bit of a maze. You can go in so many different directions. God knows where you're supposed to be going. I was hoping to find some combat here, but so far, nothing of the sort. You can find some reasonably hard mobs out here, so if you're looking for experience or something of a challenge, then this is not a terrible place to go for it. I am completely lost now. I believe the forest is deliberately designed to work that way, which is a little bit irritating. I don't think there's a way to fast travel out of it either, so when you go in here, expect to be in here for a while. I imagine the way to get back to reality is to follow these little arrows here. So we're going to do that, and that'll probably take us back to the town. Kind of disappointed it's not giving me any combat, but I guess we'll probably just we'll have to go do a side mission or one of the main quests in order to make that happen. There we go. So, out of there. Ah, combat, excellent. Every now and again, you're going to find so-called elves, and if you haven't already realized, the setting for this game is a giant LARP. So, you have two factions, the elves and, well, Cartman's guys, and they're fighting over the Stick of Truth, and you get into combat with them. Which works something like this. So, turn-based combat system, and each time you attack, it will then pass the turn to the next player. You will have a companion. As far as I know, you can only ever have one. At least up until this point, I've only been able to have one at a time. I do have a couple of companions, but in this case, I've got Kenny with me. And you can control both. The companion is going to have a specific ability. Kenny has Charm. Don't even ask. Well, I'll probably show you it, and it's fairly disturbing. And then Butters also has a healing ability, which he can use on you. Aside from that, you have a ranged weapon and a melee weapon, as well as abilities, items, and the ability to examine there. So, I am the Jew class. It's South Park. What the hell did you expect? So, I am the Jew class, and I have various abilities, including Jujitsu. Each of the attacks requires some kind of active input from you, so you don't just click it and watch it go. The attacks don't work well if you do that. You can do a little bit of basic damage sometimes if you don't hammer the button, but most of the time it's all about timing your attacks and making things work properly. Unicorn Stampede. That sounds wonderful. Let's do that. Press the keys shown. Okay. We shall target him. Okay. Well, this is interesting. So I assume it's... Yeah, it's just... It's a big QTE fight, effectively. So there you go. Some of the attacks require a lot of quick time event stuff. Others just require timing, so... I'll demonstrate that in a minute when these guys actually decide to attack me. So there's a blocking system, an active blocking system. If you time it correctly, you can reduce or completely eliminate the damage. If you block the entire combo, you have a counter-attack ability, so that's pretty good. I'm gonna use the alien ray gun this time. So in this case, when the weapon flashes, right-click, or you can imbue it with fart magic, because South Park. There you go. So that attacks everything in a line. The weapons have different characteristics, as well as huge amounts of debuffs you can put on. There's a lot of different elemental attacks, as well as so-called gross attacks, which will make the enemy throw up and also mean that they can't be healed. There's a lot of weird stuff. Frozen, bleeding, screwed, all manner of nonsense. Let us charm him. This is just disturbing. I don't feel right. I'm sorry, I don't feel right when I do something like that. Aside from that, most of it's just timing based. So when you see the flash, press it again in order to get a full combo, and so on and so forth. There are light and strong attacks available, and they are used against various kinds of enemies. So if I wanted to just do a kind of basic attack here, let's just do a strong attack, because he's armored, so I can just do that. Time that correctly, and that applied the gross effect as well. So, you know, you can see what's going on with it. It's quite interesting. I actually like the way that they've done this. They took a more traditional turn-based RPG, and then decided, you know what? Turn-based RPG is boring in terms of the combat system, so we want to make you just a little bit more engaged. And they succeeded in doing that. They really did. Worked surprisingly well. I like the blocking mechanics. They're a little bit tricky, and that's good. It takes a little bit of practice. And each of the abilities works in a different way. So if we want to attack the guy there, we can use the Sling of David, which requires you to do that. Half of me says I shouldn't be laughing at the Jew references, and the less mature half of me says, har, har, har. This doesn't do any damage to him because he's an armored guy, so not too useful. For a fight like this, I'd probably want to use Butters, but never mind. I don't think you can switch out mid-fight. No, you can't. Do Jujitsu once again. There we go. It can get a little bit repetitive, but I like the fact that you're always engaged, and it's the blocking mechanic, I think, that makes that work the best. You might say, oh, well, it makes the attacks more interesting because you can do this kind of thing. And yeah, clicking at the right time for combos is nice, but it's the blocking that's actually useful, especially later on in the game. You start to get hit a little bit harder. The first 5 hours, until you reach a particular point involving aliens that I don't wish to spoil for you, is silly, silly easy. Like, I've never died at any point during this game. And I've never felt like I was going to either. But unless you want to really start wasting your potions, which, you know, is just a hassle more so than anything else, then you'll want to be blocking actively. And I enjoy the blocking system. It's good, especially the counterattack system. It's quite strict on its timing. So there's quite a bit going for it there. I like that a lot. So outside of the combat, what is there to do? Well, it's mostly exploration, finding collectibles, and doing quests, which I suppose is to be expected. There don't appear to be any sort of big minigames that you can engage in. I thought perhaps the Chin Pokemon collecting thing would let you have Chin Pokemon battles or something like that, but it just seems to be a case of collect the Chin Pokemon. Because do it. And, alright, fair enough. I guess that's all there is then. Which is a bit of a shame. If you don't like looting, then this is not a game you're going to enjoy too much, I've got to say. Alright, where are we going? I could go hunting. That's another one of the side missions. You can actually go hunting and unlock equipment with the hunting shop. We could... Yeah, let's head over there and let's do the Man-Bear Pig side quest. That seems like a good way of avoiding spoilers for the most part. Outside of that, you've got a bunch of South Park humor pretty much everywhere. Whether it be simply direct cutscenes or whether it be simply in passing when you're talking to the various characters around the place. And that's the kind of thing that, again, that I can take or leave, and is also going to be the sort of thing that can put people off in a major way. Because, I mean, stuff like this... Some people are not going to like the fact that, yes, there is an alien probe in your arse that can give you the ability to teleport around and nonsense like that. It's a bit of a funky mechanic, to say the least. And it actually does bring on a discussion topic, which is how good the PC port is, and my answer to that is, well, not very. It mostly comes down to how fiddly all of this nonsense is. Now, you're using the keyboard, right? So you'd think your abilities like Buddy Command, Shoot, and Alien Probe, which are all required to navigate the environment, would be on separate keys. Nope. The number keys are not used for anything, and there is no key binding option of any sort in this game, so you can't rebind them or anything like that, which is a gigantic pain in the ass. And especially when you're switching between these, it can be very fiddly, considering that you've then got G, which is your magic ability, then you've got F, which is to activate the ability that you change with Q, and then if you want to change your magic ability... I can't even remember what the button is for that, I keep forgetting it. Wait, there. Okay, so that's E. And it's just a little fiddly, yeah? And it's gonna get fiddlier because there's 2 more magic abilities in the game. I don't really look forward to switching between those. It's pretty silly, and it's just indicative of a console port that didn't really have enough attention put into it, unfortunately. I'd love to say otherwise. It's not that it's not playable, it is. It's just the UI is fiddly as hell a lot of the time. It's not like you can't navigate all of this with the mouse, and all of this with the mouse works fine. We can look at the inventory screen right now, in fact, and I'll show that. You know, this all works absolutely fine with the mouse. Nothing wrong with that. But aside from that, switching between abilities in the environment is a pain. A real pain. And it's kind of odd, because you'd almost think that they would want to go for a similar sort of command wheel style if they wanted to do anything. Like the combat, you know, you've seen the combat. There's a command wheel there, you just click what you want to do, and you go, and it's fine. You know, there's nothing really wrong with that, but all of the environmental interaction stuff is a little bit annoying, and there's quite a lot of it, particularly one bit that I just got past, which has a fairly large number of environmental puzzles. And in fact, a lot of the big combat sequences do as well. You've got to bypass this to get to here so you can fight the next one, and that usually involves a combination of shooting parts of the environment to knock something down or make something blow up, combining that with your fart magic and all that stuff. Now, equipment. Pretty decent selection of stuff available, actually. So you've got ranged weapons, where you can have one ranged weapon equipped. And there doesn't seem to be a huge amount of variety in what these do, but if you look at the bows versus, say, the ray gun hits everything in a line, whereas the bows, they have a triple attack, which is useful for taking out armor. It can do a volley and all sorts of things like that. So there's a little bit of variation there. The most variation appears to be in the melee weapons, and it can have either two-handers or one-handers, and there are certain perks and abilities that will buff that up, as well as modifications. If we look at the Alien Probe, you will see the weapon strap-ons, hurdy-durdy-dur, and I've got a lot of them, which, annoyingly enough, don't tell you what they are when you hover over them, so you've got to click on them in order to do that, which is a little annoying. It's just another slight problem with the UI that the PC version seems to have. Oh, well, I suppose the console version has it too, but it's just particularly annoying here. And you can add one of these. In this case, I use the gross damage one because I actually have a synergy with that. And you can pick from a fairly large variety of modifications, actually. Well, looks like we're fighting whatever the hell this is. And they synergize together quite nicely, which is pretty cool. I like that a lot. I was surprised to find as much depth in the equipment system here. Didn't really expect that to happen, but as it turns out, there is actually... Oh, he's grossed out. Never mind. Okay. There is actually a significant amount of depth when it comes to the modifications, and finding a synergy is pretty enjoyable. Although it has got the point where it seems a bit broken. Like, so I have a synergy which allows me to regain power points when I use gross out attacks. Now, the Jujitsu Attack uses 8 power points, which is kind of its balance because it's a really powerful stun attack, which when you put points into it gives you like a divine shield and all sorts of things like that. You can even attack again if you KO an enemy with it, so it can get ludicrously powerful. But because I have the restore power points on gross attack synergy, and this attack actually has a couple of different hits in it, I get pretty much all of my power points back. In fact, all of them back from doing an attack. So I can keep doing that over and over and over again. And I've only found one enemy in the game so far that's actually been immune to stun, and that's only when he had a specific buff on him. So stun is ludicrously powerful. Alright. Let us use this one. There we go. Furry friends. Summon a bunch of rabid rats. Which will then go and attack, eh? Pretty amusing attack, I've got to say. Some of the attacks are very creative. Gotta give them credit for that. Combat's fun, though. It's definitely the strongest point when it comes to this game. Exploration is fun as well, but the main problem with exploration that I've got is that it is mostly a giant excuse to find a bunch of loot. And you also get a bunch of vendor trash as well. The problem is you can't properly vendor it quickly. There isn't a button that says sell all junk. And there's no reason at all to hold on to your junk, far as I can tell. Oh, you can't be serious.
Gosh, thanks for coming to visit. But here, every day is Christmas. So when I say howdy ho, you gotta say, howdy ho, Mr. Hanky. Give it a try. Howdy ho. Guess they let anybody down in the sewers these days. Who's at the door? Is that the guy with my pills? No, it's not anyone with pills for you, darling, okay? I called that motherfucker 3 hours ago! This is my lovely wife, Autumn. She celebrates Christmas with vodka and muscle relaxers. And here, every day is Christmas. Wait, where the fuck are my kids? What do you mean, where are the kids? You're supposed to be watching them out back, Autumn. No! They were being watched by the babysitter! The babysitter quit 4 months ago when you threw up on her! Don't you fucking yell at me! Don't you excuse us a minute! Don't you ever embarrass me from a stranger like that! You're drunk on him, and you don't know where your kids are! Fuck you, they're your kids too, you piece of shit! No, fuck you, and fuck you! Howdy ho! Listen, I gotta get my wife some help. Could you go look for our children? I sure would make it worth your while. There's Simon, Amber, and Cornwallis. Tell them their father wants them home right away. My babies! Bring me my babies! You're a fucking train wreck!
Well, there's that. When I said the game is littered with toilet humor, I was being quite literal. See what I did there? I'll never say anything that clever ever again. That depresses me. Oh well. So there's plenty of that nonsense. I've lost my train of thought after that. I don't think you can honestly blame me. Yeah, I was talking about vendor trash, I think. It's probably the most annoying component of the game is that you collect so much vendor trash and selling it takes forever. It's just click, 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 click. There's a sell stack button, but that requires extra clicks. So why would you do that? It's better to just sit there hammering the left mouse button 200 bloody times. Ugh. It's not good. I don't know what they were thinking there. Really, really silly. And it's something they just need to patch in. There's supposed to be a day one patch for this, but I don't know if they're going to be adding in functionality like that. The fact of the matter is it should have been there in the first place. I think, yeah, we're just going to use this attack. It's so stupidly powerful that we might as well just wipe them out with this. There we go. You gain experience regardless of who does the damage anyway, so you might as well use the most effective thing you've got. There we go. Which is that. Jeez, that's ridiculous. Ludicrous. Oh, man. We can finish him off quite easily now, I think. There we go. Oh, that was lovely. mutant rats are now horribly dead. Oh, there's one of them. So, do I like it? Well, the PC port is okay at best. Now, it's pretty annoying in most circumstances, I've got to say. It's just little UI things. They could be fixed. There's nothing really stopping them from fixing it. So the hope is that they actually do. The combat is fun. It's continually fun. They actually kept a reasonable amount of enemy variety going, which is quite surprising considering the amount of LARPing stuff they did. For the first few hours, you're pretty much fighting the same few kids dressed as elves that have the same sort of abilities, but things start to open up after that, and you get a good variety of enemy types that have a number of very interesting attacks. I think it benefits a lot from the setting because it's South Park. They don't give a damn. They don't really have an I wouldn't even say an aesthetic, but they don't really have sort of a, I wouldn't even say a lore. I don't even know what to call it, because there is, of course, like South Park lore or whatever. And everything, I suppose, makes sense within the South Park setting, but it wouldn't make sense anywhere else. That's the weird thing about it. So I have a feeling that just because it's South Park, a lot of the nonsense works. I mean, why am I fighting hobos in the sewer? Why was I fighting aliens earlier? Why was I fighting giant mutant rats and LARPing children and ginger hall monitors? Because it's South Park, and that's how it works. Like, alright, fine. I can pretty much accept that. You want to suspend your disbelief, then yeah, South Park game's a good way of doing that. And it helps, because it does give you that ridiculous amount of variety. Unfortunately, it also kind of requires you to like South Park in some way. And if you don't, well, I mean, there's no reason to play it, because it is laden with South Park humor. A lot of it is ridiculously gross out. The alien probing sequence in particular, I absolutely hated. It was just like, oh god, really? You really had to do that? Kenny is unfortunately dead. I don't think can I revive him?
Give me whatever you got on you. I'm good for it.
I don't know if I can, actually. No. I guess when Kenny dies, he dies completely. So there's that, which is interesting. Your other companion, Butters, doesn't if he gets knocked out. You can just revive him, but you can't revive Kenny. So never mind. I think there's a Kenny death counter as well, by the looks of it. Yeah, I suppose that makes sense. As an RPG, it's pretty good. I mean, there's not a lot of role-playing going on, but the combat's fun. The looting is relatively fun. The character customization is excellent. I'll go as far as to say that. And it's mostly a bunch of minor complaints and subjective stuff like, hey, I don't like the humor here, or the navigation's a bit annoying, or the PC port's not incredible. I mean, this area in particular is irritating because, of course, it's a bit of a maze. I think mostly I've actually liked the environmental puzzles. I think they're fairly well put together, but a lot of the puzzle aspect of it seems to be more of the case of, oh, navigate this environment in 2D. Which is a bit annoying most of the time. And it can get somewhat confusing and disorientating from time to time.
What I do?
Is it offensive? Of course it is. Of course it's offensive. It's a South Park game. What do you expect? If you're not looking for that, yes, I'm about to circumcise a hobo. Why not? It's a South Park game. It's to be expected. That's just horrible. It is a South Park game. What do you expect? If you don't like that stuff, then don't play it. No. Oh man, but it's a good game for the most part. So lengthwise, I'm told that the main quest can be beaten in about 9 hours, but there are a huge amount of side quests and collectibles. So I'm now about 6, maybe 7 hours in, and according to the other people that I talk to that have actually played this game, they say I'm probably about just under halfway through it. I don't know if there's any replayability going for it. I mean, there are 4 classes you can pick that do very much have a bunch of different abilities. I picked the Jew class because it seemed the funniest. I think I was, for the most part, correct in that assumption. But there's a fighter, there's a mage, and there's a rogue as well. So if you want the more traditional classes, you are able to do that. Although, I gotta say, the Jew class, oh pow! Oh pow! Did I really just say oh pow? What is this game doing to me? Oh no, that's gonna become a thing, isn't it? Bloody well hope not. Unicorn Stampede, I think. I just want to see that animation again. I don't care if it's effective. This is where half the game's budget went. There you go. Look at that. Because why not? You know, I half wanted to let the unicorn actually kill him. I probably should next time, just to see what happens. I don't have a great number of problems with it. Just mostly minor concerns here and there. Things that I hope can be fixed in the patch. PC port issues. I surprisingly haven't found too many bugs. In the first couple of hours of game, I found 2 bits which wouldn't let me pass, which involved me having to reload a checkpoint in order to get them to work, and those are apparently there for certain other people as well, because I spoke to a few other reviewers about it, and they also ran into the same problem, which was fixed fairly simply. But outside of that, game seems to run fine. Doesn't appear to be any obvious crashing issues, any hangs, or anything like that. I think the game probably has a few balance issues here and there. I think the build that I've gone is ridiculously overpowered, and I can't seem to die. I regenerate health too quickly. I get that sodding divine shield. That's really, really good. I regenerate my power points 100% of the time, meaning I can constantly use my most powerful stun ability. So, that's a little silly. And like I said, the game's a bit easy. Having a companion get knocked out doesn't really make much of a difference. You're so much more powerful than they are anyway, and there's no consequence to it. So it may be that you actually want to play the game on hardcore difficulty instead of playing it on normal, because there isn't any combat challenge to be found, at least in the first half of the game or so. I am afraid. But aside from that, it's actually pretty fun. It's going to be a take it or leave it for a lot of people, for obvious reasons, because they just might not like the South Park humor, and there's really no way to avoid that. You're gonna have to deal with the fact that there's fart jokes. Simple as that. Alright, I'm gonna let him get mashed by the unicorn. There are fart jokes! Lots of them. There are shit jokes. There are... there are... a bunch of racist jokes. Anti-Semitic jokes. Gay jokes. It's all there. But it's a bloody South Park game. What the hell did you expect? I think I actually might lose here. Wow! The first time I've ever died. I guess I probably shouldn't have killed my partner off, but there you go. Seems like a good time to end it. South Park, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pretty fun game. I find it very enjoyable. It's a nice town to explore, even though it's a little annoying to get around. The humor is, I suppose, what you would expect from a South Park game. That's going to be a take it or leave it thing for a lot of people. If you can deal with that, or maybe even if you actually enjoy the humor, by all means. It's pretty faithful, and honestly, you've got to give them a bit of credit. In fact, more than a bit of credit, a hell of a lot of credit for putting together a game that looks so much like the cartoon. And that in particular is just really impressive. The fact that they managed to animate that and actually make it work as a game, pretty awesome. I don't think they would have managed to pull it off with a different genre. It works with an RPG. Anything like a platformer, I think it would be bloody horrible. But it's an RPG, so it works. And Obsidian seem to have made a game that isn't riddled in bugs, which is good. Although, it's not exactly the ideal place to exhibit your writing talents, is it? It's South Park, for God's sake. The writing is going to be 90% gross out and 10% clever. So, there you go. It's not bad. I've had a decent amount of fun with it so far. A lot of loading screens, though. Don't really know why that is. Never mind. South Park, ladies and gentlemen, the Stick of Truth is available for your full AAA price. $60 or your regional equivalent. And it's out on the 4th of March. So it should be out now or very close after this video comes out. Will be available on 360, PlayStation 3, and of course PC. My name has been TotalBiscuit. Thank you very much for watching. Yeah. I'll see you next time.